Hello, everyone on the line. My name is Ken Almanza. I'm the outreach specialist for Mobilize Youth for Action Session 3. Everyone just get comfortable, get your technology in place, in order. We're just gonna spend the next couple minutes just waiting for everyone to come into this session. Just as a reminder, this is for the Mobilized Youth for Action program. So we have previously done 2 sessions. They are available on YouTube to watch. So if anyone who is visiting us for the first time, no worries. We will definitely catch you up and you will have your makeup. For those of those who didn't go to our orientation session, or those who didn't attend the last session, we will definitely do a little recap before I start today. But again, for those of you who did download the GoToWebinar application, hopefully we'll be able to speak to you today on your mic. So feel free to unmute. And also, you can type your questions, your comments, your concerns, anything in the question, the actual chat box. So it doesn't have to be a question. It could just be a comment, a concern if you're having trouble with the slides or your technology, and we will gladly assist you. Is there anything, Jesus or I want to introduce? So I'm sorry, my apologies. I want to introduce my other 2 colleagues, Yadeli and Jesus.
Thank you, Ken. So you guys might have heard me already from the second session yesterday, but yes, so feel free. I will be monitoring the chat. So if you guys have any questions or comments during our presentation, please feel free. We're trying to make this interactive. We're trying to have a conversation with you guys and let you use your voice as much as possible.
And Ken, just to give you a heads up, it looks like some people might not have access to mics, so we might have to do a lot of the interaction through the chat.
Okay, no worries. So we'll just give it a few seconds here before we start. So I see we have about 13 attendees here. I see some people from yesterday returning. Welcome back. I did receive most of the photo voice assignments, so thank you, and everyone last minute turning it in. I do have it, so if you don't see it on the slides, I do have it. I will mention it, and you'll have a chance to either unmute yourself or type it in the chat, and we can use it as a discussion. So what we'll do is, let's go ahead and move to the next slide, and we'll start our tech check. Let's do that. So we're going to do a tech check. So just wanted to, before we start the actual content today, let's do a tech check. Let's see, can anyone who has access to mic, can you unmute your mic for this icebreaker? So what we're going to do is I'm going to do both in one. So we're going to check your technology, your sound in the chat, and see if we can actually do an icebreaker. So an icebreaker is just a way for everyone to get to know each other. I know that yesterday we did a little introduction. I know there are a lot of athletes. We have a lot of talented group here. We have some musicians. So we have people from Riverside, from various parts of the Inland Empire. So that is super exciting. So right now, the icebreaker question is, what flavor ice cream are you, right? So this is an icebreaker we did actually here at our agency. I'll go first just to give you an example. So I mentioned that I was Neapolitan. So I'm Neapolitan ice cream because there are multiple parts of my personality. I am an artist, I am an advocate, I work in social public health. So there's multiple layers. But I'm not too complicated. I'm a super simple kind of person. But I do like the different layers of myself. So that's an example. If anyone else wants to unmute themselves and answer the question, what type of ice cream would you be?
And Hiren, I saw your comment. Try unmuting yourself. I believe I have unmuted you now.
Oh, so I think I'm also Neapolitan because that's my favorite ice cream flavor, and also I haven't thought about like this question, so I think I need to think about like why I would be that
Yeah.
flavor.
Thank you for participating. It's an odd question, right? What kind of ice cream are you?
Yeah.
That's that's kind of the purpose. It's just to get you thinking, just something fun, something light. Anyone else want to unmute themselves? And what type of ice cream would you be? You could be an ice cream flavor. Anyone else? You can also type it in the chat box. Let's see. Any questions? Yadeli, Jesus, do y'all want to give your?
Yeah. So I would say I would be a mint chip ice cream because that's my favorite, and I don't know when I like mint a lot. And when I think of like mint, I just think of like cool, calm, and I feel like I'm pretty calm, just relaxed.
That's a really good description. I like that.
That's very true. I would say I am cotton candy from the Thrifty brand ice cream because I grew up eating that ice cream as a child. That was my favorite one. I really like it's like a bright pink and blue color. So I like to stay positive and bright and be sweet. So that's my choice.
Wow. I've never tried the cotton candy. Hopefully I'll try that. So we do have some questions. So yeah, so those of you who don't want to use your mic, if you are having sound issues or anyone else, you're more than welcome to keep it on mute, but you can also type your answer in the question box. I know we have a few more students on the line.
Mhm. So Micah said that he prefers not to use the mic because he's in the room with his mom. So totally understandable. We can still talk to you through the chat. So just enter your answer there. And then Zach said that he would be vanilla.
Vanilla. That's a great flavor. You can put anything on vanilla. It's a great flavor.
Micah has responded. He says that he would be cherry and dark chocolate because he is sweet, but not many people like the bitter side of me.
Oh, wow, Micah. That is so clever. I love that. Cherry dark chocolate. All right, we're gonna hold here. I want to hear from some more students. It gives these type of icebreakers, they help exact do that. I break the ice just we talk about so many heavy topics and so much information. It's important that we're all in this together, right? And we know what we're like as people and personalities because it helps us tailor the education and help each other have a conversation. So anyone else? What flavor ice cream would you be? I see.
So Owen said that he would be vanilla because the calmness.
Hmm. So you have the two calm. You have the mint and chip calm, and then the vanilla calm. It's a good. That's what we all need right now, some calm, right? And everything that's going on. Awesome. Now, while you're answering that, does anyone have any issues? Are they having issues with the mic or the GoToWebinar? Can everyone see the screen correctly? We're going to go over a lot of slides today, so I just want to make sure we are on good. Is anyone using it from their phone? Is anyone having trouble on their phone, laptop?
It looks like a lot of people are using it on the web again. So
Okay.
if you want, I can put the link to download the program in the chat again if people want to try and download it again.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so We'll keep the question bar open. I'll look. I'll wait for your answers. I'll see there, but we'll move on to the next slide here. Thank you for those who did participate.
Okay, let me move to the next slide.
Right. So today these are the topics that we will be covering. Again, this is session 3, so there were 2 sessions prior. Just to give a little recap, the first session was just an orientation on what the Mobilized Youth for Action group is. It's just basically a way for us to inform students across the Inland Empire on how to bring concern, right? To bring concern and to bring a voice to substance use that exists across the Inland Empire, both in San Bernardino and Riverside County. So a part of that is using the voice of youth. You all have power. You all have power whether you are aware to it or not, but you have power to make change and to push policymakers and your city councils to actually pay attention to things. So this is what that program is designed to do, is to give you that information and that base knowledge, whether you've already received it in your classroom settings in high school or middle school, or whether you're still in process. This will help you kind of shape your brain so you can kind of understand the concepts in one specific way as it relates to substance use. So when I talk about substances, we're referring to marijuana, to alcohol, cigarettes, vaping. Those are all substances. So when you'll see in the slides when we talk about substances, that's what we're referring to. Okay, and the group that is on the call today, we all work under a grant that tackles substance use disorder, specifically opioids. So that's what this program is designed to do, is to educate youth and adolescents about substances, substance use disorder, and how we can use advocacy, meaning adding voice to what we see. That is kind of the short way to explain advocacy, is you're adding a voice to what we see in our community. So today, we're gonna cover, what does health look like? So how is health related to advocacy? How is our health, and the social determinants of health related to us, our day-to-day lives, the lives of our families and friends and communities? And I will go over and explain what social determinants of health means. We'll also go over kind of the root causes. One thing that really helped me understand, especially when I was in high school, was what is the cause of something? You know, what is the reason, the root of something, right? What is the problem? You know, when you look at a plant that you have at home or something in your backyard, if you see that it's molding, you see that it's wilting, and you want to know, what is the cause? Is there too much sun in the environment? Is the soil not good? Am I not watering it enough? Is there too much humidity? Think of it in that sense. What is the cause of an issue, right? And the issue we're talking about is substance use across the Inland Empire. So what is the root of that? Why does that happen? Why do people, especially youth and adolescents, turn to substances to escape? And then we're going to review the photos, the screenshots, all the assignments that everyone sent over through email. I have them on the slides here, so we're going to review them as a group. And we're gonna kind of go over a conversation. So that's why it's important to have, we'll have that chat box and question box open today, because we really need to have a back and forth conversation today about the state of your community. So what does it look like in your city, town, in your region? What are the things that you see on the daily basis? You know, when you're going to the store, when you're going to the park, when you're going to school, when you're out with your parents, what are the things that you're seeing? And then lastly, as a group, decide where we want our communities to be. What do we want the community to look like for us, for our families, for the future generations? What do we want the community to look like, and where would we want it to be? So just get your mind thinking about, what is an ideal community? What would be the things that you would want to see? And how would that benefit you to have a better life, to more opportunities, and the social networks and the people that are around you? How would it benefit them, right? All right, so let's go to the next slide. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them along the way, and I will stop the presentation and I will address the questions, okay? All right, so what makes up your health? Let's get some more participation. So we'll go over these one by one. So when I say health, right, health means something different to everyone. Health to some of the athletes on the line, right, may be having enough stamina, enough energy to make it through practice, right? You have school all day and then you have practice after school. You know, you need your physical health, right? You need your physical health, you need nutrition, whatever you're consuming throughout the day. You know, if you eat a large pizza on the schoolyard and you have practice, you know, that later that day, is that going to affect your performance, right? So that's one thing that you all can relate to is your physical health, right? Um, there's also emotional health, right? What is your state? How are you feeling when you go to school? You know, when you wake up in the morning, are you feeling um, excited? Do you have self-confidence? Do you feel that you're going to take on that day, or do you feel a little depressed, right? Do you feel sad? Do you feel some sort of anger? Do you feel frustrated, scared? Those are very, very important markers, right? Because if you are experiencing anything um, where you can express your feelings or your emotion, it could directly affect your education, your school, your performance in anything you have going on, right? And that kind of ties into your mental health, right? Are you talking to school counselors? Do you talk to a therapist, a family therapist? You know, are you able to express your emotions with your parents, with your family members, with your brothers and sisters, right? That's all part of what makes up health. Environmental health. So environmental health, that is basically what is around you. What are they, do they care about a community? Sorry, I was just reading the question here. I see Sabrina had asked, do they care about a community? Yeah, do they care? I think that was a question, do people care about the community? Yeah. Um, the environment you live in, what is there litter, is there trash, are there substance users on the street present? Do people actually care about the community? Do they throw trash in the appropriate spaces? All that has a direct effect on how you view your environment, right? Do people take care of as simple as watering the grass, you know, in your neighborhood, the upkeep of trees? All of that contributes to your mental health. And then lastly, you have things such as educational and social, right? So how much information are you receiving in school? Are you reading outside of school? Do you have a favorite podcast or a favorite social media person that you follow that educates you on specific topics? Is there some place, maybe a career you're interested in? Maybe there is a doctor or a lawyer or a social activist or an athlete that you admire and you look up to, right? What type of messages are you getting in terms of education? Um, and what type of socialization do you have, right? Are especially right now with all of us being behind screens and being able to do this distant learning and on Zoom and go to webinar, we're missing that in-person connection. So we're missing that those activities that helped us really get through the day, right? And these are all various levels of health that we all have to pay attention to. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to ask, what are some examples of health for you that you would like to comment on? Just in a specific example, something that was maybe a good or bad, if you feel comfortable letting us, of sharing that with the group, that would be great.
So go ahead and write them in the chat, or if you need to be unmuted, also let us know.
Yeah, if we unmute, can we unmute everyone at the same time? Or would that?
Let's see. Jesus knows a little bit more than I do on this app. Can you go ahead and see if that's possible?
Yeah, so everyone who has a microphone is already unmuted on
Gotcha.
my end. So if they want to talk, they can just unmute themselves.
Okay, perfect. So again, the question is, do you have any examples of health for you? A good example, something you do for your health or something that you're struggling with that you would like to share?
So Owen has commented being in shape and doing exercise to stay healthy.
Yeah, yeah, research and data shows us, right? And a lot of examples that staying exercise contributes to your mental health, to your brain, you know, being active, it helps what's called dopamine. So dopamine are just receptors in the brain. They're basically, it makes you feel good. So after you have a really good practice, right, a really good scrimmage or a really good match, and you win the match, you feel really good. You feel really good. Your body feels good. You're sweating. Your mind. You're like, I'm doing something that's keeping me, contributing to my health, and it's making me feel good.
Hiren, I see you unmuted yourself. You can go ahead and finish your thoughts.
Oh, so I thought that like other people can also affect your health because like they can smoke around you and like do drugs and stuff, and that can negatively influence you.
Most definitely. That's environmental health. That's exactly what environmental health is. It's harming by you just being in the closeness of someone smoking can harm you. So I see Micah mentioned for one thing, I have little to no access to things like therapy. Like my school doesn't have a counselor I can go to. So again, environmental health. That's a see, this is a perfect example of an adolescent youth that can bring a concern to the public. The lack of access for therapy, the lack of access to a counselor, because we have students who need that, who are requiring that, who want to have a resource, but yet it's not available, right? So that is part of the lack of the environment that the person is in, and then the lack of mental and emotional health resources, right? So we have another comment. For my mental health, I always give myself time in the day to do what I enjoy or complete a task to show myself that I'm working and moving towards something. That is that is wonderful. Yes, so it's a matter of we all have to take breaks. That's why we have lunch breaks in small breaks in between, and you have, I believe in school, you have your nutrition breaks, right? You have your little breaks to kind of just decompress, to let everything that's going on. You have to always schedule that. And as you move into adulthood, or as you move from 6th to 7th to 8th to ninth grade, life is going to feel very heavy at times, and it's going to feel very overwhelming, with emotion and education and getting into your college. And it's important to give yourself those spaces to enjoy something you like, and a hobby and activity, something that's going to benefit you and make you feel good, to make your health balanced. You have a balanced life. All right, thank you too for commenting. Let's move to the next slide. I'm gonna go in a little more detail. So what are the social determinants of health? This may be a term that you have heard in some of your classwork in school. Social determinants basically mean they are the conditions in which people are born into, the conditions they grow up in, the conditions they live in, and the conditions that they work around and age with, right? So I grew up in Redlands. I grew up at the end of Redlands, in the east part of Redlands, so it was more desolate. And I grew up on a very diverse high school setting. I had friends of all races and ethnicities, and I worked around those people as well. And I started to grow with those people as well. So the view of my world was from the Inland Empire, way out in the boonies, I guess, in that part of town. But I did have diverse opinions, and I had diverse teachers, and I had a lot of, I went to a new high school. I went to Redlands East Valley High School. It was a new high school at the time, and it had a lot of programs. So those were the conditions that I grew up in. But not everyone has the same conditions, right? So a school in Upland, as opposed to Rancho Cucamonga, as opposed to Eastvale, as opposed to Chino, Riverside, they're all different conditions that make different social determinants of health, therefore create different outcomes. So depending on what you have access to, if you don't have access to mental health and you need that resource, if you don't have access to a school counselor to help guide your decisions, that's going to directly relate to the outcome, right? So understanding that conditions are it's very important to understand the conditions that are around you, and know that you do have a voice and you can bring up these concerns. Now, our circumstances are often shaped by the distribution of money, power, and resources. Again, as an example for myself, I grew up around a single mom who had to work at a grocery store to survive. So the resources I had were very limited, right? So then that shaped what I could get into, right? So when you do get involved with extracurricular activities, that involves, extra income, right? You need to have jerseys and uniforms and time and rides to go to and from practice, right? So that directly contributed to how I moved through high school. And like everyone on the line, that contributes to how you partake in activities at your school, or maybe the colleges that you're looking at. When you're looking at a UC college versus a state college versus a community college, those decisions are based off of money, right? They're based off of money and resources. They're based off of where did your parents or family members go to school? Do you qualify for loans? Do you qualify for a FAFSA? Have you done your FAFSA? All these type of things. Whether you understand these terms or not, you will come to understand these are all part of the college application process and moving into adulthood. But those circumstances will determine the outcome, right? So the last point here is that our world is shaped by these really larger forces such as economics, policies, and politics. So when we hear those terms, they don't sound really fun, right? They sound really dense. And I didn't like politics in high school because I didn't understand it. I think the way that it was the education was given to me, it was very, very hard to understand how Congress works, how the House of Representatives work, how the presidency works, right? And we're living in a time where yourself is seeing this on the news. Your parents may have this running in the background, your family members, and there's a lot of discussion, right, about economics, about social policies, about politics around COVID-19. Just around COVID-19, for instance, who gets to wear a mask, who doesn't, is it required by law? Can I go to the store and not wear a mask? These are all policies, and they're all influenced by politics and economics. Can the restaurant be open so we can sit down and eat, or does it have to be closed? That's all determined by your local leaders and your city officials who make those calls, right? So whether you understand or not, we're kind of all living in this world where we have to kind of follow based off of, again, the conditions we were born into, the type of resources we may have, and also the policies that are in place where we live. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. And are there any questions or thoughts or feedback? I want to make sure that I don't move too quickly. Feel free to type it into anything that sat with you, that hit you, something that was true for you, or a concern for you. Yeah, Deli Jesus, how about any feedback, thoughts from?
I just agree with everything you said. And I also want them to know that, yes, things can happen at the higher levels, the federal level, but also things can happen and affect you more directly at the local level. And you can share your voice and you can make a difference in your community. You just have to know how and be able to do it in the right way.
And how you were saying, Ken, the way that like policy and politics are taught in school isn't always the most effective. And even now that we're like, or when you get older and like policies and politics affect you a little bit more, the way that you were taught really impacts how you engage with it now. So if you weren't taught how to properly engage with it, it becomes a little bit more difficult for you to be able to handle all the situations that come up.
Agreed. Yeah, it's hard to understand. We have for those who will be of voting age, right? Who will be 18 soon. A lot of people don't understand how to register to vote, or how to go to a polling place, or where you're supposed to be registered. As a Democrat, as a Republican. These are very they're real things that really affect how our lives will look and how our adulthood will look, the type of opportunities we're going to have, jobs we're going to have. And it is heavy. It is very heavy, and it feels it can be very overwhelming to learn all about it. So that's why programs like this, we just kind of teach it to you in small little chunks. So you can kind of go off and understand, oh, this is how it looks in the real world. This is how it actually applies in my life. Okay. So I didn't see any questions. This is a quiet bunch today, but we'll move to the next slide. Okay. So this is basically a slide. I wanted to go a little more in detail about what all of these things mean, right? Culture. What does culture mean, right? What is the culture? Is there one culture or is there multiple cultures, right? So culture basically means it's the values and it's the norms that can impact health, right? So something in a culture that exists that we've seen is racism, right? Racism exists in various ways, and that can cause things such as stress. It can cause things such as anxiety. It can cause things such as depression. You know, when the culture itself, there are evidence of racism happening, right? It could be on a larger level, the things that we see on that are broadcast on our news station, but it'd also be on a smaller level, a comment that someone says, the way that someone says something, at school. We're very all aware of bullying, right? Bullying through grade school, through middle school, through high school. What is the culture, right? What are the values that people see as good, and what are the things that people see as bad, right? That it directly affects communities. It directly affects communities and whether you feel safe to just be in a space, to go to a certain area of town or a certain restaurant or, a certain social clique, a social group. Culture really influences that. Another marker is income. Like I had mentioned on the previous slide, having a higher income and a social status, it usually connects to having more access to healthcare. It has access to nutrition and access to a better physical environment. So whether you are aware or not, when your family line or your parents have more resources, you tend to not have to think twice about going to the doctor or go to a counselor that could be paid for through insurance or access to all organic foods at Whole Foods or wherever Gelson's or whatever supermarket. So as opposed to going to like a Food for Less or a Walmart or it changes, right? So your income basically indicates and it dictates what type of food you eat, what type of house you live in, what type of pretty much world you're going to experience, right? Income, and it's not no fault to anyone, whether your family line has money or not. There's no fault on any side. It's just a matter that having either too little or too or a lot, it's going to directly affect things you have access to. Okay, so employment. So people who are employed, so when you have a job, you have better health outcomes because you have more control over your environment, right? So for those of you on the line may have family members um, who have lost their jobs during COVID-19 or who do service work, right? Maybe they work in a restaurant, they work at a bar, or they work in an environment where these jobs actually were closed, right? They're cut hours, they have changed a lot of storefronts that could usually be open, they've closed them or they don't need staff, right? So when you don't have a job and you don't have employment, that means you don't have a steady sense of income. So back to that last thing, when you don't have income, how are you going to pay your rent? How are you going to pay for your food? How are you going to pay for gas for your car? So having a job in itself is a necessity to have just a regular baseline, normal working functioning life, and it disrupts everything when you don't have that. So directly related to as education levels. So when you have education, when you know better or when you know more, you can actually do better, right? When you understand how things work and you have the education on how a system works, you can actually navigate the world and you can move through the world with more self-confidence because you are aware of how something works, right? So if you are aware um, say of how to sign up for insurance, right? You're aware on how to go online to sign up for an insurance plan because you want insurance and you're aware of where you need to go to find a mental health clinic. When you're aware of all these things and you have the education and resources, you can move through the world a lot easier. as opposed to those who don't have that confidence, or maybe they don't understand how to call the doctor and make an appointment, or how to get health insurance, or how to apply for a job, right? With so many jobs out there on Indeed and LinkedIn, and you have to go through these processes, right, to upload a resume and know how to build a resume and know how to do a cover letter. These are all things that are taught through education, right? So when you don't have the education, you have that lack of how to move through the world and how to get to the next steps as you go into adulthood. And then lastly, physical environment. So being in an environment with, for instance, that has clean air, that has healthy people, that has safe roads, that all contributes to a good outcome, a healthier outcome. So when you are in an environment that has healthy breathing air and it has clean water, these are all things that we take for granted, for those who live in communities that are that have all of these things, across Southern California. For the most part, a lot of us do, but some don't. Right? Some don't have a safe house to live in, or they are moving from house to house due to their loss of jobs where they can't pay their rent, or they have a home that does not have a working faucet or doesn't have working running water, or they live in environments where it is unsafe to drive. There are potholes, or there are drunk drivers, or there are people who speed on the street. All these things contribute to your outcome on how you live your life. Okay. So does anyone have any examples that they could add to something that we just talked about? So an example of culture, how it affects you, an example of education level and how it affects you. So I'm going to pause here and see if we
Right.
get any.
And then on the point that you were making, Ken, earlier about grocery stores and like how different income levels impact grocery stores. Something that I've realized recently was that there's like a big company, and they own multiple different grocery stores. So like, for example, Kroger, I believe, owns Food for Less, and they own Ralph's. So whenever you're out in your community, try to notice where they place the Ralphs and where they place the Food for Less. And then if you're ever in either of them, try and notice what type of products they have in each store, and try to think about why they would need to separate those different stores and offer different products in different neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's a very good observation. Yeah, so environment, what does the environment look like? So any feedback? So anything, so the question is does culture, income, employment, education level, or physical environment, does that affect, how does it affect you in your daily life? Remember, there's no wrong answers. No wrong answers here. This is simply just a conversation we are having.
Pirate, you can go ahead if you want to say something.
I thought that education is one of like the most like that affects your future the most, because some jobs, like most of the jobs require education, and if you don't have enough of them, you might not be able to get like high paying jobs. You might have to rely on like more of the basic ones, like working on the grocery store and stuff. Yeah.
Yes, very, very good point. Yeah, it directly affects your opportunities, right? It directly, when you go and for those of you who have looked for a summer job or a summer internship, you always see, right? It says qualifications are required, right? And when you don't have that, how does that make you feel? When you don't have, it says, must have this experience, must have this, must have this. And you're like, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door and start this process. And it can be overwhelming, right? I have a comment here that regarding education. So education affects me, says I take AP classes and honor classes that puts me in a higher academic rank, and it allows me to obtain college credit earlier than other students. Yep, you are exactly right. So having AP classes, right, having your GPA score, those are all markers that colleges are going to look at, right? Colleges, for those who do college prep, For those who take AP classes, the reason that you take those AP classes is to look great on your, when you exit high school, right? To be attractive to colleges. So yeah, that's a direct link to if you, it's almost like when you're doing that extra effort and you're going out of your way to do more work in AP classes, it puts you above in
Mm-hmm.
the eyes of the college, right? But for those who maybe don't have the time, there's some people who don't have the ability or the time to do the AP classes because AP classes require what? Extra work, right? The load of it can be much harder, right? I know that when I took AP calculus, I had to do a lot more assignments than my regular peers. So, it was very, very hard.
Definitely. And Ken, may I add, that just reminded me, when I was in high school, I took AP Psych, AP English, AP Spanish, AP History, and then when you take the exam at the end of the year and you get the score to pass, the 4, the 5, then that can transfer over to college credit. So not only does it look good, but once you're actually in college, it can knock out some classes that you have to take. And for me, that allowed me to take a minor and to explore other classes, explore other options, internship classes, things like that, so that I wasn't doubling my work in the end and I could actually explore and see other opportunities out there.
Yeah, and to navigate that takes time and effort, right? To organize and plan your whole day.
Definitely.
And I think on that same note, in order for a school to be able to offer AP courses, they have to invest in staffing teachers who can tackle that curriculum, and then to take the test, it costs you to take the test. So I know some schools offer fee waivers, but if your school can't offer fee waivers, maybe they can't offer those courses.
hmm
Maybe
Exactly.
the students from those schools are already at a disadvantage coming into a university setting.
Yeah,
hmm
so we see multiple layers, right? The income, if your family, my family didn't have any money to pay for SATs and I had to do a voucher. I did a voucher when I did my
Mhm.
SAT. Yeah.
Same.
All right, so I see a comment here from Zach that Owen and Zach and Micah. So I realize that culture sometimes affects income. Yeah. So the culture and on what's the norm can affect your income. So if you don't fit the norm, right, the culture of say a Stanford University, right? There's a culture there that they want you to have, 4.5, however high it goes, and they want you to have the highest. That's going to affect if you get in, right? They want to see how many extracurriculars you did, how many of these type of trainings did you participate in, how many certificates do you have. Let me read your letter of self-evaluation, all those kind of things, right? That's a culture that can directly affect if you get the job or you get accepted into the school. I have here, education is the most important because of a lack of education limits your opportunities, right, Zach? So again, if the lack or not having that can limit what you can apply for.
hmm
And then
Yeah.
Mike, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna add, so yeah, like you said, it's the most important. Yeah, I could agree with that because once you have your education, that's something that no one can take away from you. It's not the same as with income or in employment or your environment that you can't really control, but you can control your education, and once you have it, it's not something that you on yourself and no one else can really, like I said, take away.
Most definitely. And I think Micah mentioned I'm going to be taking a CNA course, so I'll have my foot in the medical field. That's great, Micah. Yes. So taking those courses, doing this is going to help you get your foot in the door. It's going to completing this course is going to see that you have the drive and the determination to do something outside, right? This is something that you volunteered to do, and you're doing it with your own time, and you will be getting a certificate. You'll be getting completion of doing this course. So yes, anything to add to your education, please always take advantage of those things. So we're going to go to the next slide here. So this is just a visual to, again, just kind of recap or review what we just talked about, right? So you have, when you have the root, right? The root of something is who are you as a person? You know, you could be 16 years old, female, and that's the view you have of the world. That's going to influence your individual life. factors. So if you go up one more into the orange bar, and based on who you engage with, right, and individually, that's going to contribute to the community, right? The community and social networks that you're connected to. And with that, that's going to indicate your living and working conditions. So again, just basically talking about who you are as a person, the attributes that you have, the individual decisions you make, the type of people you engage with, friends, family, is directly going to relate to where you work, the education you get, whether you're unemployed or not, what type of uh, environmental health or environmental harm is near you with your water sources, your housing, healthcare. And then the largest one is just the larger policies that we're talking about that affect everything. So basically, we live in the United States of America. By that, we have the Constitution, and through each state has their own laws and policies. So all of those directly trickle down and affect us on how we are. So this is just a visual about how everything is interconnected. So when you look at things like Jesus mentioned, when you go to the grocery store and you see a food for less over at Ralph's, and you see food for less, $1.99 pack of donuts, as opposed to Ralph's, you see organic whole food cookies, right? So that's not a coincidence. It's a directly related to the incomes around the neighborhood, the environment around the neighborhood, and sometimes those things can cause harm. So that's just a visual for you to see. We'll go to the next slide. All right, so this is gonna be the fun part. So we're gonna review our photo voice results. So I managed to put everyone on slides, everyone's information on slides. So everyone who sent me either pictures, screenshots, the description, where you just wrote out what you've seen, that's all included here. The only one, I think there's one or two that I did that came in a little later. So we will review those things at the end, but I do have them in my email. So if they're not on the slide, don't worry. It was a last minute sent to me, so we will review them. Okay, so let's go ahead and review first by strengths. So remember, just to recap for those who weren't here yesterday, a strength is something that is helping. So the photo voice, just to recap, photo voice is basically using photos to express your voice. That's pretty much all it is. So we are using photos today. That this was the assignment from yesterday about substance use in your community. So the reason why I started off the presentation talking about all those health factors and social determinants is because that's all the reasons why you took the pictures and you took the screenshots. All those reasons is why visually it's going to look the way it is. So remember, those two are going to be connected. So just keep your brain thinking, right? All the things that we just talked about, how is it connected to the pictures we're going to see? And when I mention strengths, I mean something that's helping the community, something that is already there as a resource. So when I say resource, I mean something that is going to benefit you, your family, your friends, whether you experience substance use or your family or friends. It's something that exists in the community that can be accessed, that someone can use. So that's a strength, okay? So first we're going to go over the strength. So let's go to the next slide and see what we have. All right. So I always like to start with the positive first, because when you have positive outlook, you can get to the answers, right? So I'm not going to name who sent what, just for the sake of time, but if it is yours, please comment in the box or unmute yourself. So the first one I see here as a strength to the community, right, is the real cost. Oh, I love these commercials. So the real cost is a social media campaign, TV campaign that talks about the harms of vaping. So I know that a lot of people in your age range either use vaping, someone who has vaping, they take it to school, on the ride home on the bus. This is something that is really spread across the Inland Empire and all over the United States among youth. The real cost, that is a video series that tells you the truth. It tells you the truth of the matter, that these are harmful effects. There's harmful effects with vaping and the substances that they're made out of, right? The oils, the flavors, right? There's all these different like fruity flavors, and it makes it feel almost like it is targeted to youth, and it is. You know, these vaping, they shape them, they look like USB drives, or they look like it's like a toy or something that gadget, and they flavor them, right? There's like bubble gum, cotton candy, passion fruit. So all these things you would see maybe in a candy aisle when you check out. These are actually in a harmful substance. So that is very, very much a strength. That is a educational campaign that exists online, and you've seen the TV commercials as well, probably. That is definitely a strength. So on the bottom here, we had another student show me substance help centers. So if you make the screen big, I know it's a little hard to see. Is there any way to zoom in at all yet, Ellie? I'm not sure.
Let me check. Yes.
Oh, technology, I love it. All right, so we see this is the Inland Empire. So this is the whole corridor of Ontario down to Orange County. Oh, okay. So these are all substance use centers. So for those who are not familiar with substance use centers or treatment centers, these are all locations that one of the students found on the map where you can actually go in and get treatment for your substance use. And these are strengths. When a community recognizes that people who live in that community need help, and there's this many centers across the Inland Empire, that is a real strong strength because, wait, strong strength, I think I need to go back to high school. That doesn't make sense. um, that is a positive. That's a positive for the community because it allows those to know that there are people who care, there are organizations ready to help you, and that they're spread across many cities. I see that there is, though, a big gap, right, in Chino. So Chino Hills, that may just be going into the mountains though, but I don't see anything in that area. So if someone had lived in Chino, they would have to drive down to either Corona or to Riverside off the.
Pomona.
Mhm. So how many of those are in the neighborhood, right? So when it's important to think about, not everyone has a car. Not everyone has a license. Not everyone is able, right? Some might not be able to drive a car. They may have a physical disability that disallows them to drive, where they have to rely on the bus, right? So those are all things to think about into consideration. So before we go to the next slide, is there any comments for those who sent these two examples? If you want to comment on your example.
I want to comment, but
Sure.
so I see that the real cost has 59,000 subscribers, which is a lot, but there are some that have way more. This person's also subscribed to PewDiePie and Mr. Beast, which obviously have like millions of followers and things like that. So maybe more people should be subscribed to the real cost.
Yeah, and that happens through advocacy, right? So sharing it. Remember how we, for those who did mention on the last orientation, sharing on social media, reposting, putting it on your Instagram story, taking a video of it. That's how we spread education. And I
Hmm.
think I will give it to the youth. And today, you all know how to spread education very quickly on social media. You are the most inventive group I have ever seen spread education. So that is a wonderful way. Is Irene, did they have their hand up? Sure.
Not that I
No.
can see.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this was, so someone who lives in Corona, a student that lives in Corona actually has there are 3 or 4 different recovery centers. So there's the Better Community Counseling. So that counseling that we had mentioned earlier, there is a center open right off of the 91. There's also the center, I'm not sure if Centerpoint Inc. is one, but that's there. And then we have Branches Recovery Center, which is also, so this community specifically in Corona near the traffic circle, as you can see here, has some resources. That they have some good resources to start with. So that's a strength, yes. Let's go to the next slide. So the MFI Recovery Center, good job. So you all found the Recovery Center. So this is in the Orange Crest neighborhood of Riverside. So I see this is off of a major, not too far, but in little off of Van Buren. That's one of the major streets in Riverside that goes across um, that region in Riverside. So, and then looks like MFI Center looks like a peaceful place. It looks like welcoming. It's maybe it's perched up on the mountain somewhere, or it has a lot of it feels like someplace I would want to, go to if I had some sort of, I needed help. All right, so next slide. All right, so one of our students took a picture of a pool rules reminder. So I see the highlight here. It says no alcoholic beverages are allowed in the pool. That's great. That's great because it allows the alcohol not to be around children, right? So a lot of pool complexes have families, multi-families. There's a lot of kids who go into these regions drinking in public, right? It allows other people to see drinking in public, but it also allows for glass to not be in the pool, any type of litter, any type of evidence of substance use, right? With the 4th of July weekend coming, those, may be going to pools and having barbecues and but at least there won't be alcoholic beverages around the kids, so that is definitely a strength. One thing I thought was funny, it says 4 guest limit. I have a very big family, so we're gonna have to revisit that pool reminder because I want to bring our whole family to the pool.
And it's also important, Ken, that people are not, under the influence when they're in the pool area because it impairs your brain, it impairs, your motor skills, your vision. So I think this is also so accidents don't happen, drowning, even if you think you're a good swimmer, but under the influence, just like with driving, you also don't want to be doing swimming because that could turn dangerous.
That is so wise. Yes, I didn't even dawn on me. Yes, it's impairment. Impairment causes accidents, and in the people drowning, that is completely. So thank you to whoever sent this, your pool, and make sure if you're be safe with COVID. There's no congregations. I know I mentioned the comment about the group, so follow the guidance of social distancing and proper sanitation if you do partake in that, and mask wearing. All right, so next slide. So these were some just comments that I received through email. So the only strength I found that there was a rule prohibiting consumption of alcohol in the pool. So we just went over that. And then another strength was I saw that there was a billboard in my town, an opioid hotline to help people stop people misusing opioids. Yeah, billboards. When you have a billboard in your community, right, and it's something that's affecting you. I know when I was younger, when I would drive in the car and I would see something, a message, right, that spoke to me. When I seen a Latino family and I seen, especially, I think there was a community college ad and there was a Latino guy who looked like me and he was holding a diploma. How does that make you feel? When you see someone who looks like you or you see a company advertising to you saying, this is for you, this is to help you, this message is for you. And that's a great strength to have in a community when you have billboards that are helping, saying that we know that there may be people misusing opioids, but that doesn't make you a bad person. It just means that we have some help. We have a treatment center, or we have a hotline to call, right? Before we go on to the next one, does anyone have any strengths that they want to share in the comments? Any strengths that I didn't mention here? Any comments, thoughts, a strength that they forgot to mention or want to talk about? Pause here for a second.
Someone's raising their hand, I think.
Hiren.
Oh, okay. So one strength I found was that in my school there's like a drug prevention day, so you dress up like to like remind people to like not to do drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a public awareness day to remind everyone about the harmful effects of drugs. Yes, most definitely. That's a strength because that recognized that if it was put on by your school, that your school recognized. They recognize that and they have officials, right? The school intendant or your principal or whoever that is, right, to say that this is important for our population and we need to have a day about it. So that's a strength. Awesome. Anyone else? I think we had a little comment here. Let me read it. So there's an app where they show you like the dangers of smoking through like video games. Oh, Micah, tell me more. What is it called? So apps, that's very important. A lot of us have apps on our smartphones. We have apps that help us. We have apps that are fun and silly, and then we have apps that are educational. So showing the dangers of smoking through video games, through there's a thing called entertainment education. So a lot of companies do use ways to entertain you, but also at the same time educate you. And I think that's the kind of like the vaping commercials you've seen. I don't know if you've seen, he has like a magic wand and he puts the cape over it and he makes it disappear. That's a way to entertain you, but also to educate you about something that is real and affecting you. Yeah, so I would love to know the name of that when you get a chance. All right, so let's go to the next slide here. So concern. So just to recap, concern is something that is an issue that you felt that needs to be addressed. The concern in the photos shows that it's affecting, it has multiple effects that are concerning to the residents. So let's go ahead and go into those. Next slide. All right. So I see the first one here. It looks like a cigarette butt, right? Thrown into the garden. So I'm not sure if that's your apartment complex or just on the street, but evidence of smoking, right? So not putting the cigarette butt in the appropriate place, right? There's places to discard of cigarettes, and if you're just flicking it, right, those have contaminants, those have cancerous carcinogens that exist. Not only is it damaging that beautiful plant right there, but it's gonna blow in the wind, right? It's gonna blow those contaminants. A dog could eat them, a young kid could pick it up. There's a lot of harm that you may not think that just that little bud right there has multiple consequences, right? It could affect pets, humans, the plant life, and if it adds up, it causes evidence to say, okay, what is this substance? I want to try it. It creates this curiosity, right? If you keep seeing cigarette butts everywhere, your mind kind of can sometimes go to say, oh, what is that? I want to know more. Let me try it. And it kind of leads you, it could possibly lead you into that. So we have the Chino Hills Barbers. Do they give good haircuts? I need a haircut. Let's see if we can go down there. But it's right next to a tobacco, with huge sign. There's also right next to a dentist. So whether you're getting your teeth cleaned or getting a haircut, you're seeing a tobacco sign. So again, the signage, right? The signage is really big. I see if we can we zoom in, Yedeli, on that picture on the
Yes.
hookah. So I see that. Oh, so we have electronic smokes. Can we go in a little tighter? Is it going in?
Yes. Let me see.
So
I think this is the max I can go.
no worries. So I think I'm reading electric smokes, and then I'm seeing a hookah, right? So look how big the hookah is. The hookah is the entire window, so it's almost glamorizing it. It's almost seeing it as this is something it's cool. It's something you can get into, right? And look on top of that. It has a huge blinking, I'm not sure if it blinks, but it has a huge neon hookah sign. Right, so how does that make you feel if you're waiting for your barber to call you and you're sitting in that car right there, in that gray car, and you're waiting for your barber to call you, or you're waiting outside with your mom or your family members? You're seeing, right, signage, and it's enticing you to either go and on your own and learn about it, or to actually walk in, like the woman that's walking in there, I'm not sure of the age of that person, but if they were an adolescent, are they going to get carded? Are they going to allow them to buy something, a vape substance, um, and it's in the middle of a major shopping center. That's a concern. That's a really big concern, right? Because these are essential goods to get a haircut and to do your dentist, and you have a huge store right in the middle. So let me go to the questions here. I see. Oh, so just to go back, it's called Rainbow Unicorn Attack. That is the smoking, the dangers of smoking. Oh, wow. Okay. We will definitely look that up. So let's go to the next slide. Let's go over some more concerns here. So lyrics, Wiz Khalifa, any Wiz Khalifa fans? So
Guilty.
before I let's go back one slide. So this is prefacing, we're not endorsing any of this as the organization. We're just saying that this is just evidence. This is just something that exists. So this is a song by Wiz Khalifa, and I see underlined multiple times, smoking on medical. Smoking on medical. I put weed in a cone. So obviously this person is referring to marijuana. It can be inferred, and we can, through logic, we can say that this is a medical marijuana maybe reference, right? So this song, Playing for You, is out on the airwaves, right? It's on your Spotify, it's on your iTunes, it's on the radio.
I'm
When
sure
you
there's a
hear,
music video too.
there's a music video with Khalifa. He may be coming to the Inland Empire to perform. Who knows, you know? But when you have stuff of this nature that exists in your day-to-day life, not only do you become curious about what it is, you end up wanting to try it because not only does it glamorize it, you're seeing a person of a certain status, right? A celebrity figure, a social media figure, um, entertain you and say that this is something that's in my life and I'm entertaining you, but it could lead you down a path of experimenting with these type of substances. And we know that substances like marijuana can be addictive and they can have repercussions to your brain cognition, to comprehending your schoolwork, to, um, you know, I don't know any athlete that can be using medical marijuana and be on the field for a game, you know, for that duration. Or I know we had, was it a trumpet player on the call, or we had some instrument players, you know, when you're impaired, how would you be able to read the music, the sheet music, you know, or
Mhm.
play the correct notes or say in unison um, with the group, right? So these are all things to take into consideration,
Mhm.
right?
Even Ken, I would like to add, I'm sure you and Jesus also had to do the pre-employment drug test in order to get this job. So when you grow up, jobs want to make sure that you're not doing any substances that can impact your work levels and how successful you can be in the job. So that's a factor also that you have to consider.
Yeah, that goes right back to the policies, right? The policies of a company. You know, the policies of a company say that you need to be drug tested in order to be hired. You know, as simple as going to Target, right? Getting a job at Target, um, you need to do a drug test and you need to do a drug screen. So even though Wiz Khalifa is talking about the medical, he's not working at Target. You know, he's not going through a drug screen. So he can be more open about that as opposed to just the normal day-to-day individuals, right? So if we go to the next picture here, I noticed someone's home is near a lot of liquor stores. We have a lot of liquor stores. I think this is the 15. This is Corona because I see the
Hmm.
traffic circle. Is
And
what freeway
and
is this?
the 15, and then I'm not sure what it's meeting, but you can see a little education logo right there.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
That's
near a school.
Yeah. So that is quite, and you notice a trend, right? Look at all of the lined up. So this is a major street. I'm not sure if is this Hamner? No, this is not Hamner Avenue. Um,
With the little circle here, I see it's by, um, is that
mhm,
Main Street?
I think so, the downtown. So, but you notice kind of the trend. You see everything congregated and everything in one concentrated area. Near this person's home, it's still in proximity, it's still close, but imagine if you lived on that street. Imagine if you walked to where that education, you walked to school every day and you walked down Arts Liquor, King's Mart Liquor, Corona Liquor, Barn Liquor, Del Lago Liquor, JM Liquor. Imagine what that's going to do to your emotional health, your mental health. Of you're seeing, not only are you seeing the signs, you're seeing people go in and out, you're seeing it be glamorized, you're seeing traffic go through there. Um, that can really directly affect the your mental state. It can affect the likelihood that you actually go into one of those stores when you become of age, or those adolescents who stand outside and ask adults to buy them alcohol. I know stuff of that still happens. So keep that in mind. That can be very concerning. for youth who live in that neighborhood. Okay, so let's go to the next. I think we have some more examples here. So I see there's a Crown Liquor. There's not too many on Van Buren here, but there is one there. And then I see dispensaries. So marijuana dispensaries right off the 215. So this is, I think, where the March Air Force Base is. There's the Amazon Center. So this is right off the freeway. So we see a whole cluster of dispensaries. We see Dynamic Meds. We see High Season Dispensary. Again, these are just things that exist. These exist right off the freeway. I'm not sure if there are housing, if there's apartments, townhouses in that region, but they're, again, the same kind of concept, right? If you're seeing multiple dispensaries, and I know off the 215 there are marijuana billboards. There are a lot of dispensary billboards that exist off that freeway, urging you to get off, right? Urging you to get off and stop in, right? Because we have legalized in the state of California marijuana, but even though something is legal doesn't mean that it's not harmful. It doesn't mean that it's not harmful, that it has lasting effects. So for those who don't maybe understand how marijuana works or lasting effects, it could be very easy to, when you become of age, to enter those places, right? Out of curiosity or by your friends, suggestion or peer pressure. Peer pressure is a big thing. I think one of our students in the next slide, I think, commented on that. If we want to move to is it the next slide? Let's actually go to, you could skip this slide, skip this one. I wanted to go to one more. So I wanted to talk about this example that one of our students sent in. So the story is, I frequently visit the park near my cousin's house, Garcia Park. My friends and I had gone to this park around nighttime to play basketball, and we encountered a group of kids smoking marijuana. They had even come up to my friends and I offering to share some, though we denied it. After playing basketball on our way to our cars, they started yelling at us, which prompted us to quickly get in our cars and drive off. I believe this story fully encapsulates the ways in which drugs and alcohol can affect a community, as those people who abuse substances often do so in public areas, which endangers those who go to said public areas for recreational activities. So this is an amazing story. Thank you for sharing about on multiple harms. So we have environmental harm. We have people who are in public areas. We have public displays of substance use. And then we also have those who are offering it to you. The emotional, the pressure buildup of someone offering it to you when you're just going to play basketball. You're just trying to take care of your physical health, your social health. You're just trying to go down and be with your cousins, right, near your cousin's house at a Garcia Park. But yet you're confronted by your peers who are yelling at you. That's a lot of multiple things that are concerning, right, to this particular region. Does anyone who shared this want to add anything to this? I think this is a really good example, and I would love to talk about it a little bit. Does anyone feel on the line? Does anyone have any experience like this they would like to share?
You could also be at school. If anything similar happened to you as well, you can go ahead and share.
Also, I heard this from my sister, but she said that she saw like people passing on like Jewel in the classroom and like sharing it.
Yes, Aaron, that's a very, very classic example that a lot of youth are sharing it, right? They're in between classes, walking to the next class.
In
Yeah,
the
that's
restroom as well.
in the restrooms. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else in the questions in the chat box, have you experienced a situation like this? Any type of environmental harm, any type of situational harm, social harm, where you've been pressured to use substances, or it's been in the public space where you were just trying to do something? Would love to hear from you.
We know it happens. We actually have other coworkers of us who are working on tobacco prevention education, and we have teachers all over Riverside asking us to do presentations with their students because they themselves see, as mentioned, the vape and the Juul in their classrooms, and it's a big concern to our teachers. So we are hearing about it as well.
Yeah, so I see so Owen said that we once got told to stay in our class because a kid on campus had marijuana. Yeah, so bringing substances to school, right? So they'll lock down the students to stay indoors. They don't want to make sure that, people are smelling it, right? Secondhand smoke of someone who's smoking it nearby. If they blow it, you can get a contact high. That is something that's possible, right? So that was a safety precaution done by your school in particular. Yes, good example. So for the sake of time, I'm going to move to the next tab. Please keep adding your comments in the chat box. I'm reading them as I'm going along. So these are some questions that we want to answer as a group. So we'll need your participation in this part. So let's just some questions. So what is the present state of your community? So for everyone on the line, just think about that. And I would love just a one-word answer is fine. I would just like you to put your city that you live in and one word that explains the state of it. So you can say Riverside, and you can say one or two words. How it looks right now. Is it a lot of alcohol? Is there a lot of substance use, little substance use? Is it concerning to you? Do you feel that there's a lot of strains? If you could just let me know, what is your current city? What is the present state? Just some, 1 to 3 words. Safe could be a word. You can also live in a very safe community. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. You can live in a very dangerous community. You can live in a concerning community. You can live in something how you would describe it. So there's no wrong or right answers, okay? So let's see, let's just get the current state. I wanna see the current state. So your city, okay. So somewhat safe, oh, that's telling, yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna read them as they come in. So Samantha had mentioned that about 3 blocks from her high school, there's 14 CBD dispensaries, smoke shops, and liquor stores. All of these are walking distance, and I have frequently heard stories of friends who have been there. So Samantha, yes. So the state of your community, right? It's overwhelmed. I would say it's overwhelmed, and it's with the amount, right? So that's the state of your community. So let me know, Samantha, what city that actually is, so I can tie that into. Owen said Riverside safe. Okay, so Owen has a safe neighborhood. Sean mentioned Fontana somewhat safe. So there's some concerns there. So we'll definitely return to that. Corona, mostly safe, but few concerns. Okay, so Corona. So I see that the part of Riverside and the part of Irene that lives in Corona, mostly safe, but there's Fontana. So I'm in the Morongo Basin, and I would describe the Morongo Basin as deserted. I would say it's somewhat safe. There are some concerns, and I would also say the Morongo Basin is in need of help. I would say the Morongo Basin is in need of help. Okay, so we had Zach say Riverside fairly safe. Okay, so then we have Micah said, it's not exactly safe or dangerous. Like I can walk out and it seems really nice and everything seems fine, but then you pass by the Chamel Park and it is overrun with people out of their minds on drugs. It's Riverside where I'm at. So look at what I want you to understand is that park, Chamel Park, right? Is that near where Owen lives, right? Because Owen also lives in Riverside, but the part of Riverside that Owen's in is a lot safer. But then maybe it's farther from Chamel Park. So even within your own city, things could look very different from one part of town to the other. So Samantha, just to return to her, I live in Riverside and I go to John W. North, but overall I would say it's safe and few minor concerns. Got it. So we have parks. So there's some concern about the parks. There's some concern about many. So what I'm doing here is and I'm writing down some themes. I'm taking notes for everyone, okay? We have parks. Sabrina Warren said hello. So Sabrina, are you trying to speak on the mic? Do you see any issues, Jesus, on Sabrina's end?
It doesn't look like she has access to the mic because she's
Okay.
on the web page.
Okay, Sabrina, I apologize if you are trying to unmute, but you can write your comment in the chat box. Um, bear with us. We are technology is never our friend sometimes. Heather mentioned Rancho Cucamonga, and it is a peaceful community. So Rancho has a peaceful community. Um, multiple stores, okay. So as you're seeing, strengths and concerns, right? So we're going right back to our assignment, the strengths of communities and the concerns. Okay, so that's a good starter. So second question, what are some changes that you want to see take place? So if I may, just because it was a really good example for Chamel Park, Micah, what would be some changes you would want to see for those who are experiencing substance use disorder in the park? What are some things that you would want to see? And then for those who, let me go back, the city that had, Samantha, so the city that had, what would you want to see as far as the dispensary? Would you like there to be less signs? Would you like there to be less smoke shops, less liquor stores? Would you like there to be more billboards that talk about how to get treatment? So anything that you feel for those who have concerns. So the reason why I'm focusing on the concerns is that's going to be the ultimate what we decide as a group to turn into a resolution. So for those who didn't attend the last session, we had in the last two sessions, we mentioned we're going to present a resolution. So we're going to have our city council in each of our cities declare a resolution or a declaration to say how are we going to contribute to helping those who are experiencing substance use and also the environment. How are we going to contribute? What specifically? So the things I have right now are the parks, so public display. I have the amount of liquor stores and CBD stores that are around. So what would you like to see change in your community? Okay.
It could be related to your guys' schools as well, like what you guys see in school.
Mm-hmm. So as we go, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have you brainstorm in your own on your end. But I'm going to take down those two concerns about maybe some public drinking, parks, those who need help or treatment, and then also the amount of liquor stores and signage, perhaps. I'm going to put that just as a little. I'm going to save it to the side. We'll talk about it more tomorrow with Jesus's session. But what I want to do is I'm going to go to the next slide here.
Okay. And we also have two comments in the chat.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Let me, so I personally think there needs to be more outreach to said people. I couldn't find any help centers in Riverside, and the park shares a fence with the elementary I went to, so I know kids are being exposed. Oh wow, Micah. So now some sort of prevention is what I'm seeing here. We need some sort of prevention outreach to help these folks, and then we also need to find a way to maybe minimize, right, to limit the exposure to the kids that are in the neighboring school. Hiren mentioned making a separate designated area for smoking. Yes, yeah, so maybe designated for smoking, designated areas. Samantha mentioned, I think there should be more attention towards the area of these shops. If more parents looked into the amount of unsafe shops, I'm sure they would be concerned as well. That is an excellent point, Samantha. So what you're saying is we need to actually talk to the parents. We need to talk to these parents. So that leads me to the next point, which is stakeholders. So before tomorrow's session, I want you're doing a wonderful job of identifying the people and the places and the policies that need to change, right? In order to create change, we need to know who is at stake, who has an involvement. So just to make it as easy as possible, a stakeholder can be a person, an individual, it can be a group, it could be an organization like Reach Out, who is impacted by the outcome of a project. So they have an interest or success of the project, right? So when we think about places, Chamel Park. Chamel Park is run by the recreation, right? The recreation department and most likely in the city. They have grounds people, right? There's a city council, there's a mayor. These are all people that directly need to be notified about the issue. Do they know about the elementary school kids that are being exposed? Do they know that the people that are inside the park that they actually need treatment and need outreach and they need resources? And can we, as youth and adolescents, can we make it evident through photos, through making things like a resolution, through making declarations and statements to our city saying this is concerning, right? So that stakeholder is going to basically be what we're going to talk about in the next session. So before I move to the next slide, I want to just kind of recap. Today was a discussion about what are the root causes? What are the root causes that exist in our communities and why? The social determinants, remember all those culture, income, education. And what does our community look like, right? What are the strengths? What are the concerns we're seeing? And who do we need to visit? Who are the people? Who are the organizations? And who are the policies that we need to talk about and visit to make change happen, right? So the people that are in the park that are experiencing substance use disorder, their income, their education level, their opportunities, their housing, that's all why they're in the park, right? So if someone doesn't have education, they didn't have a job, they turn to substances, that's directly related to why that person is freaking out in the park. You know, it's something beyond their control. All the elements worked against them in that specific situation. It's not saying they're a bad person, it's saying that they need help. They need resources. And they need people, places, and policies and organizations to help them achieve a better health outcome. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Jesus to get your brains going for your assignment for tomorrow. We can go to the next slide, or slide after that, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Ken did a really good job of explaining some of the root causes to some of the issues that we're seeing in our communities. So to prepare you for tomorrow's session, here's your quick homework. It's nothing too intensive. We're going to be going into actually talking about advocacy and civic engagement and policy. Now that we know what some of the issues in our community are and what some of the root causes are, and we can start thinking about that, we can then start thinking about what are ways that we can improve our community, what actions we can take in order to see some of these issues resolved. So based off the definition that Ken gave you on what a stakeholder was, I just want you to think about the issues that you brought up today, that you see around in your community, and just create a quick list of who you think the stakeholders are in your community around substance use disorder in your area. So issues around substance use disorder in your area, who are the stakeholders that you think might be involved in the issues? And they don't have to be 100% right. We'll go over it tomorrow and we'll go in depth on exactly what stakeholders are. But just so you can get your brain moving and start thinking about who might be involved in these processes and who might be involved in the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And then the second part of your homework is to watch this quick YouTube video that'll give you a quick breakdown of what policy is and how we can get involved in policy, and it makes it in a way that's a little bit more digestible and a little bit more fun to watch and to hear. So we'll go ahead and post that YouTube link in the chat, but we can also send it out as an email attachment, so you can have access to that. So anything else that you wanted to add, Ken or Yedili?
If you could just really quickly repeat, because we have Sabrina who had to log out and log back in. so she missed a little bit. And then Irene asked, do we send an email of the brainstorm?
Okay, so let me just repeat the homework for Sabrina. So the session tomorrow is going to focus on civic engagement and advocacy and how we can get involved to address the issues that we've brought up today in the session. So I just need you to brainstorm a list of stakeholders around the substance use disorder issues we mentioned today that you see around in your community, and start to think about who the stakeholders are, and just jot down a quick list of who you think might be involved, who you think we need to have conversations with, who might want to jump in on the issues, who might want to be against them, and just start to have that idea of who we have to talk to. And then the second part is to just watch this quick video. It's about 7 minutes, and it'll give you a quick introduction into policy and how we can get more involved in our communities. And then so for the brainstorm, hopefully I moved around some settings for this for the webinar tomorrow, so hopefully we can have mics working. But just in case, you can go ahead and email them. Is it okay if they email them to you, Ken? Because I know my email is not on here.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do, so the same email you sent the photo voice, you can send it to me. So just to clarify, just a stakeholder again is just a person or a place you believe that is connected to substance use disorder. So it could be the park ranger, it could be the city council, it could be the mayor, it could be the elementary school principal, right? It could be, you know, because he's obviously seeing what's happening, right? It could be, who are the treatment centers near Chamel Park? You know, is there a hospital near Chamel Park? Is there a community center at the park? Those are all stakeholders. So anyone that is related to either helping the concern. So basically, we're looking for people and we're looking for advocates and partners, essentially, partners that are going to help us support helping those people who need substance use treatment or helping prevent the kids or the youth from getting involved. So you can just email it again, ken at wereachout.org. So the same one you sent the photo voice, you could just go to your sent email and send it to the same one. Just send me some things you believe that are stakeholders. Nothing too overwhelming. Today was very heavy, dense on a lot of concepts. So just hopefully this is all, you're digesting it and it's making sense for you. I know this is like summer school, right? It's a virtual summer school. But I just want to thank everyone today who joined, and I want to thank everyone who participated. You all are doing so wonderful. Your examples are incredible. Your discussion is incredible. Please keep this up for Jesus tomorrow. We're all going to be convening, so you'll get another registration link by tomorrow, and you'll get a reminder email from Yareli that will include the YouTube video. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I'll be putting these videos up on YouTube so you guys can watch it on your phone if you need to catch up. You can also email me because you probably are getting emails from me already, so you could just reply to them as well. It doesn't matter who you email to, we'll all get back to you.
Yeah, but if you have any questions before we log off, please put them in the question box. Other than that, you are finished with session 3. Congratulations. You made it. Again, thank everyone for joining. We will hang around for a minute. If there's any questions before we hang up, or you're more than welcome to email me any questions you have. Okay. All right, well, that concludes our session. This will be on available for recording for those who join after. Everyone have a good evening, and thank you for joining. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye guys, see you tomorrow.